All right, so I'm going to walk through a demo of OnePlan, but I wanted to start with sort of a quick sort of snapshot of what we see with a lot of clients when we talk to them and they outline their current scenario. You'll see here on the screen I have a project set up, and this is in Planner, and you can see down the left side there are a bunch of other Planner projects. This is a traditional sort of Planner environment. So here you can see we're scheduling some work, and it's not uncommon for the clients that we work with for them to have a group or a department or a business unit that chose Planner as their tool of choice. It made sense for them at the time, it was where it was available, and off they ran, and now they're comfortable with it. Another group may be turning to Project for the Web, which is what's on the screen right now. So now we have this new capability, and groups are starting to adopt this. So I have my ability here to kind of go a little further than what Planner could do, in that I can create a schedule. I can look at that schedule in a board type view. I'll just sort of quickly kind of jump through that and see sort of who's working on what. And then I can jump to a timeline view, which is a little beyond what Planner does, to kind of give this the conventional scheduling capabilities. So this is where Microsoft's going. There's been a lot of emphasis and investment in this area. So there's this tool option. Then there are organizations who use Project Professional, and will continue and will need to use the more robust, more rich tooling that this provides. So this capability, there's a project schedule. You're going to see me use this schedule a little bit later in the demo, where we've built it out using Project Pro. And if I go back to my web environment, the fourth scenario is, as Jim just talked about, as people shift left, this idea of managing work in an agile type format, where we get into things like user stories and features and epics, and you'll see some of those on the screen, where you may have groups within your organization. This is how they organize their work. This is what they're trying to do. And so as a PMO, you're trying to make sense of all of this. I have stuff in Planner. It's basic, it's simple, but for the groups that are using it, they love it. I have people starting to use Project for the Web. I have that audience or that business unit that has to use Project Pro because they need the rich capabilities. And I have other groups moving more towards Agile, and they want to use this type of tool, whether it's Jira or DevOps or what have you. So let's bring all those together. That's the whole message that we wanted to cover today, is bringing order to this chaos. So I'm going to jump over to my OnePlan environment. You'll notice I am in Teams. Just wanted to draw that attention that I'm going to demo this from inside Teams. So we're layering that into this equation as well, is that ability to collaborate on these things, regardless of where they exist, by having a Teams environment. So I'm just going to push the Teams stuff out of the way, just to give myself a little bit more room. And what I want to draw your attention to first is I'm in my portfolio here, and you can see those various projects. For customers using mobile was the Project Professional ones. Social network integration was in Planner. This counter Heartbleed web security was actually one of the epics or one of the components in DevOps, and the app launch events down here in Project for the Web. So those four projects now reside here. And if I jump to, I can do different views, but now I can do my status reporting, my dashboarding, all of that common language that we as a PMO or as an organization need to understand the status of these projects and so forth is all here, regardless of the tool being used. We're not here to tell people you have to drop that tool and move to a different one and go through that change management. No, we want to incorporate that into your overall user experience. So I'm going to dive into a few of these pieces because I want to spend a bit of time on this, because this now gives me the ability, as I come in here, to look at some of the data that we can capture, again, regardless of what tool's being used. So here, I can now layer in things like stage gating and governance on any of those types of projects where that would not be available in some of those tools on their own, and capture some other information, including a business case and prioritization information, which I'll use a little bit later. And then it's status report, and I'll spend a bit more time there as well. Next, I can look at this in a financials context. So I want to lay out what this budget might look like over a time phase. Again, not something that most of those tools can do, and certainly not something that they natively support in terms of consolidation. But I have it here, so I can do a cost breakdown structure and a budget by month, and I can track actuals and all the rest of it, and I won't drill into all that detail. The third one, which is probably one of the most popular ones when we talk to clients, is that ability to understand where we are with resources across our organization. Each of the tools I showed you handles resource assignment and management very differently. Some will give you the task and assume that the task is the only thing you're working on. Others can do very sophisticated scheduling. Others don't have any concept of time range or dates. They just simply have work effort. So we need to be able to take those different things and bring them together. And so here I have my list of list of resources rather. I have some generic resources I need to fill in, but I'm looking at this I'm just using one of the 4 I showed you, but all of them would have this same capability to define what resources I need, how much I need them for in a given month, in this case, or week if you want to go to that level, and what that means in terms of the other capacity or the other tasks that they're assigned to across the organization. If every project sort of uses this common frame, we abstract ourselves from the ways that each of those independent tools handle resource management and give us a common language and a common interface to work with. So very quickly, I know Daniel, who I'm logged in as, has work on this project this month and that month and is actually over allocated due to other commitments on other projects, including some of the other ones I showed you. Next is the actual work plan. So we're drawing into here some of that data that we looked at. So the actual schedule from Project Professional, we can now visualize it here. This is that same schedule. We've pulled it in. We've also pulled in, this project happens to do both. We've also pulled in its backlog, which is the very information that was sitting in this view here. So now I have that same information here. So as a PM, I don't need to go out to those tools. I can visualize and use all of it right here in front of me. And then lastly, to sort of close off that piece of the story, is this idea that I can do a status report for this particular project here centrally. Regardless of the tool I'm using, again, I can come in here and create a report on the status of this particular project. That will load, I hope. There it is. So I can now have that common language. One of the most, in all the implementations we've done of PPM solutions over the years, without a doubt, status reporting has been one of the common threads and common themes. To be able to go in and provide a status on this particular project that is a common user interface and a common set of criteria and common set of information that can then be moved on to the program level and the portfolio level and to some of the dashboarding I'll conclude this demo with, is very important. And so we're not limited or bound to those different tools, regardless, whether they're Microsoft tools or otherwise, we have this common language. So that's some of the key components at the project level. Next, I wanted to look at this in the context of one of the things that Jim pointed out about sort of coming out of the pandemic was to identify and consolidate. Well, we've done that by getting everything connected here. We've identified where all the projects are, what tool they're being managed in, who's on them, and all the rest of it. So we've done that identification. But what you're also seeing on this screen is the organization or the consolidation of those projects. You see here we've got these different programs and portfolio constructs here where we've organized those projects into groups. Some of these projects that I had opened earlier are actually all part of a specific program. One of the other ones is in a different program. But there they are inside of a portfolio and part of a program that we can now do status reporting at that program level. We can assess budget and budget usage at the program level. We have that overarching view of these projects that have taken off from all over the organization in these variety of tools that people grabbed and went with in a time of need. So we have that organization and that ability here to sort of get structure and stuff around that. What we can also do is prioritization. So now that we know what we're working on, are we working on the right things? Are we focused on what we should be? So now you can see where each of those projects would have potentially done that alignment to strategy and would have created a score. Now, again, there's all the tools that are being used. I can now start to prioritize. I won't go into this in a ton of detail, but I can literally start to move projects up and down the list if I want to and say, that's no longer important, I want to move it down. But, and here's the value of that common language around budget and around resources, is I can now start to look at all those projects, set a target for my budget, and start to determine how do I go about achieving that budget. Let's sort of correct those 2 months. You start to look at some of these projects down here that we have proposed. Again, I don't think the one that's on holdout. I start to work on improving my budget situation. We're getting there. And I can take out a few more. and it'll continue to recalculate. So almost there. I'll stop there for now. But this is the byproduct of that common language with respect to budget. I don't care what tool you're using. You'll notice I clicked right by those. I didn't pay attention to which one they were in. I didn't have to go back to the tool and change a budget value and bring it forward and do something with it. No, I have my information is here, it's centralized, and I can work on it. Likewise, I could look at this through that resourcing lens and start to make changes to the projects that I'm including to try and get rid of some of this red or shift projects out, shift timelines, and do that type of prioritization because I'm looking at this resource pool centrally and not set it up in those different product environments to try and make sense of it. We are managing our resources centrally against the capacity of the organization. That's a conventional prioritization. What we also have in here is some other views of this same data. So now I can look at this. This is a board view. I'm looking at it by strategy, but I could look at it by goals by program and start to make some decisions here and move projects in and out of a program to make decisions on how I might want to move forward in a more agile type of format. I can perform that type of prioritization here as well. Lastly, from a view perspective, is this idea of a roadmap. So I can now look at my projects, again, independent of what tool they might be being executed in and where they are and who owns them. But I have this overarching view that I can now see by business unit with some milestone data and so forth and some interrelationship where each of these projects is, color-coded based on overall health. So I've got a red one there I might want to look into in more detail. And again, I don't care what tool you're using to deliver it. Lastly, I'm going to conclude this demo on the dashboards. I'm going to jump down here. I want to use a couple of specific ones. My portfolio summary. I want to quickly look at, this is my portfolio of projects and how they're performing. And if I want to get into my portfolio details, here's my overview. Here's the status of my portfolio and of the projects and epics and programs within that portfolio and how they're performing. So I'm looking at a particular portfolio. Here are the programs in it, and here are the projects. So I'm able to pull all that data together, report on it centrally, get a good, clear picture of where we are as an organization, make some prioritization decisions to ensure that we stay aligned with what's important, and that we're optimally spending our budget, and that we're using our resources in the best way, and then turn the teams loose to use the tools that they need, the tools that they're comfortable with, the tools they've adopted to execute on the project. So it's that symbiotic relationship. Here's the information that I need to govern the organization as a whole, and here's the freedom to go and execute in the way in which you need to.